All right, we are live. Just going to mute my feed here. Yeah, seriously, the guy's still cutting grass, and I know as soon as I start discussing anything important here, he's going to come right up back beside because I know he's got some left there. So we'll do what we can. If you start hearing the loud more, just, I guess, mute it for now. It'll just be a few seconds, not a whole bunch of grass there. I think he's maybe double cutting just to piss me off. But either way, so this week we've got the Camping World 400 from Chicagoland. For Roto Pros, I had a video yesterday where I kind of went over the track. So we're just going to kind of start there, I guess. We'll look at that. Chicagoland Speedway, 1.5 miles, 24 degrees of banking. It's an old surface, original surface from 2001 when the track opened. So it's, it's a very abrasive track. Tires are going to wear down. So that strategy is going to come into play today as well. With it being an old track like that, multiple grooves have formed. It's one of the driver's favorite tracks. So we're going to see 2 wide probably all day. We're going to see some 3 wide, some 4 wide. We should see lots of passing. Now, if we go looking at the last, there's 267 laps in the race, and looking at the last 6 races, there has only been 2 in the last 6 races where a driver has led over 100 laps, and that was 2016 and 2015. The big thing that stood out is how many drivers led 20 plus laps. So looking at last year, we got 5, and then we had 4, 4, 4, 6, and 5. So I think we're probably going to see right around there again. Going back, something I wanted to look at here as well was to bring up the Cup schedule. RacingReference.info is a place I use pretty much every single day when doing NASCAR. You can pretty much search anything you want. I wanted to look at the 2019 season and go look at these other races that use this full rules package. So that's with the air ducts. They add the air ducts, the 550 horsepower with the tapered spacer and the rear spoiler. So going to see some teamwork, going to see some, drafting that happened in practice. Practice was, like I mentioned yesterday, practice was absolutely awesome. It was almost like it was a race, guys pushing each other, pushing their cars to the limit to see where they could go, what they could do in the draft. And even you see some cars suck up against each other. They're getting like this. What you're going to see is that air is coming off that front car so much that some of the flaps in the front of the cars were even moving. So keep that in mind. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share my screen as we get going. A little bit blurry. I got really crappy internet connection as well, so it's not so bad when you're looking at the cheat sheet and when I share my screen. So just while I do that, I'm going to answer a few questions. Get my lineup set and cut the grass. Yeah, I got to cut my grass too. Byron's starting position, I'm going to double check on that. I believe his starting position will stay the same because he changed engines after qualifying. So I believe, that makes him more of a GPP play for me this week. I will double check that here shortly. So I'm just going to share my screen. Just give me a second here. All right, so the 2019 season, I just want to go look at a couple of these races that use this 2019 package. There's been 4.5 mile races so far. So we've had Texas, we've had Las Vegas, Kansas, and the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte. So what we've seen at Vegas, 2 drivers led 80-plus laps. We got Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano. And then we had 2 drivers that led 60-plus laps at Texas. And then things changed a little bit when they went into Kansas. They had a pretty big break, so they probably had time to analyze the data, had some faster. That's where we've seen Kevin Harvick. He led 100 laps in that race with that as well. And then we got the Coke 600. Martin Truex Jr. kind of dominated. He led 116 laps in that race. Brad Keselowski had 76 laps led, and Kyle Busch had 79. So there are a few more laps in the Coke 600, obviously, but we had 3 drivers over 70. So it seems as the more and more they've used this package, the more the top teams have really figured it out and how to get up front and lead, get in that clean air and lead laps, because passing the leader is very tough, like I talked about in that draft that you're going to see. You can get up to the car, but getting around is a whole other story. But with the draft this week, I think we are going to see some passing, but I would probably guess there's going to be 5 drivers in the 20 to 30 laps led, 20-plus laps, and I think we do see the 2 drivers kind of in that 50, 60-plus range as well. Maybe one that reaches 100, but I'm not quite sure. Now, go back and look at some picks here. on the members only sheet. And you can get a copy of this sheet after the video is done for research. I have my main sheet, it's free, but the members only sheet that you're seeing here with core drivers in green, secondary and GPP drivers in blue, and then my favorite value plays are in yellow. You can get that in the RotoPro Slack chat or the DFSR chat room as well. Just ask me or private message me and I will share that with you. I've got a few more drivers and adjustments to make once this video is over, but I will have this on here for you fully updated here shortly after the video. Okay, so I talked about dominators. My number one dominator, he's number one in my model, is Kevin Harvick. He showed a ton of speed. He's been very good here, so I'm just going to delete all this stuff, and we're going to go look at some track history real quick. On the sheet, if you want to look at track history, it's just showing the stats, not the actual results of those tracks. So I'm just going to break it down a little bit further using race and reference. So third in the last two races here at Chicago, a little bit of trouble in between here. He had, I think it was, I forget what happened here in 2015, 42nd, but he's got two top fives before that. So he's got a ton of upside. He hasn't won yet this season, but breaking down the practice data, breaking down like I talked about with the other four races, which is also on the sheet. Looking at those four, so we've got FanDuel, we've got DraftKings points from those other four races using this package, as well as average finish. Harvick is the second best average finish behind Chase Elliott, 3 top 10s on those races. But like I said, he dominated the fantasy points because he led 116 laps at Kansas, and he also led laps. I believe it was Texas there I mentioned as well. So he's leading laps these races, and then going and looking at his practice speed, he was second in 10-lap averages, and then he was third in final practice again, number one in 10-lap averages. And that 10-lap average, about 13 drivers went out. They changed tires in the last little bit of practice and went out and obviously put out their best laps. But definitely looking at Harvick in that situation as my number one guy. Joey Logano, number two. Just move this over a little bit so we can have a look at the qualifying. Logano really pops for me. Just looking at that qualifying, starting 19th, he's going to give us some place differential value as well, and his final practice speeds were awesome. He was first overall, fourth in 10-lap averages. I see no reason why he's not a top 5 car this week, which is going to give you a minimum of 14 place differential points. So here comes that lawnmower. Let me know if you can hear it. It's quite loud for me. Okay, we've got a question here, Bubba Wallace. I'll get to the value plays just shortly here, but as you can see, I do have Bubba sitting here as a value play. I talked about him yesterday a little bit, being that his final practice was 4th, McDowell 7th, like right side by side almost. In that final practice, that's kind of not like him, so I wanted to really see how qualifying went, and as you can see, he qualified 26th. So definitely be looking at him. I'm not expecting much more than a top 20, 19th, 20th as his upside, but at that price, $5,500 on both sides, I think even if he gets 20th to 24th place, even in the top 25 at that price, especially on FanDuel where you don't really need those place differential points as much, I think he's definitely an excellent value play this week, and one of, as you can see, one of my top 4 values. So I talked about 1 and 2 in my model. Number 3 in my model jumps down to Alex Bowman. Love his form lately. He's been excellent, running really good, and all the Hendrick cars actually look really good this weekend. And he's definitely, I wouldn't say number 1 when it comes to points per dollar. Chase Elliott's definitely up there as well as my number 2. I guess he would be my favorite if, you know, salary wasn't counting or anything. But points per dollar when it comes to fantasy, Alex Bowman is my number 1 out of the Hendrick camp. He was first in both 1-lap and 10-lap averages in first practice. 8th in practice too, but still 3rd in 10-lap averages. Starting 8th, I think he's a definite top 10 car, top 5 upside. Chase Elliott, his teammate, he falls to number 9 in my model. A lot of that is maybe the practice average. I got that 30 rank here, and hasn't been as good as others at this track in the last 2 years as either. But as you can see, his career track history here, he's 2nd. So if I brought that into the model, he would definitely pop a lot higher as well. If I had to pick between Kyle, Truex, Logano for cash, who would I pick? Kyle, Truex, Logano. Well, Truex would be 3rd on that list. I'm not liking his practice times at that price. I do like Kyle, but for cash games, I have to go down. I'm not sure what site you're talking about, so I'll just discuss both. Logano definitely for DraftKings. He is $800 cheaper than Truex. and $1,400 cheaper than Kyle. So I definitely like that. And it's kind of the same story on FanDuel, to be honest. He's $1,000 cheaper than Truex and $1,500 than Kyle. So you can build a little bit more balanced lineup with Logano as your cash guy. You can go Logano. I like going down to Bowman. Like I said, Byron is going to be definitely a GPP play. Like I said, Hendrick showed a lot of speed. He's starting 11th for fantasy, but he will be going to the back because of that engine change. I don't see why he couldn't get up there and get a top 10, so that's why I'm leaving him as a GPP play. But to get back to your question, Logano and Bowman, I think on FanDuel, on both sides, to be honest, make a good core for cash games, especially starting 19th on DraftKings. He gives you that place differential upside, and then I talked about the discount off Kyle and Truex. So hope that answers your question. GPP, though, I'm definitely like going up to Kyle Busch. I don't think, with his price being the most expensive, didn't show great practice times. I don't think he's going to be as popular as Logano because, one, he's more expensive, didn't show he's got a little bit less place differential value. Moving on, I really like Bowyer as well, starting 6th. They showed a lot of speed. 9th in first practice, 3rd and 10-lap averages. 10-lap average went away in final practice, but the one lap time was there. I'm guessing they probably went and ran a qualifying run in practice to get that speed, but not show the top 10 speed. So not really concerned there. They did end up qualifying 6th. They did show some long run speed in first practice, so he's kind of looks like he's got it all. They can set the car up for that, so definitely looking at Bowyer at that price. I would even consider him for cash as well, more on FanDuel, starting 6th, just because of the place differential upside not mattering as much, and I don't think he's going to be a dominator to lead laps as well, which counts a little bit more on DraftKings. How many dominators this week on DraftKings? Well, I kind of look at dominators a little bit different. I don't think there's going to be one driver who's going to lead 150 laps. I think there's probably going to be, like I said, about 5 drivers who lead 20-plus laps, which that's going to matter on DraftKings. And for that, I'm looking at 10-lap averages, especially in the final practice. Like I just talked about with Bowyer, though, him being such difference in his 1-lap and 10-lap speed in that final practice, like I said, it looks like he ran, I'd have to double check, but it looks like he ran a qualifying run to get that fast speed in final practice, worked on that a little bit more, and that's why the 10-lap average was down in that final practice. But definitely looking at him, not as a dominator, but I think he's going to be a top 5 car. For dominators, definitely like Harvick. Logano, I think, can get up front maybe in stage 2 and lead some laps, maybe into stage 3. He can be one of those 20-plus. Alex Bowman, I think, can get up there and lead some laps. Blaney looks like he showed some speed early on. I think he's one guy that can get up. I think Busch, Truex, so there's lots of guys I think that have a chance to get up there just with the way that the race is going to pan out, the way with the staging, stage races and stuff. But off the start of the race, Austin Dillon starts first. I don't. Him and Hemrick have been fast. They're going to be pushing each other, but I think Harvick gets out front fairly early and leads most of the first stage. I think he's going to be probably your top dominator. So moving on a little bit, answer a few more questions here. TIF negative starting differential. No. So this week was an impound race. So they had qualifying yesterday. After qualifying, they impounded those cars. Inspection was this morning. So anyone that failed inspection once this morning loses their qualifying time. So by losing their qualifying time, he automatically goes to the back, but he gets a new starting position for fantasy. So that kind of makes him my top value play this week because he is starting 38th right in the back. And he showed he was 30th. In first practice, 26th in second practice. He did have 10-lap speeds. He was 23rd, which I'm not looking at that a whole bunch. If we go look at the practice and we bring up Tift, there was 32 drivers that had 10-lap averages in final practice. So I just kind of go look at the speed, the overall speed, and just kind of compare to other drivers. His 10-lap averages came from laps 1 to 10, so it kind of fell off after those 10 laps. I look for drivers that maybe get those 10-lap averages later in the run. But like I said, that's a little bit skewed as well, just because some drivers went in late and put on new tires, like I mentioned. So their 10-lap averages are going to come later in the run. So, but I'm kind of looking at that speed. So comparing around him, I don't think he's much better than, he's not very close here. but he's also ahead of the guys that are below him. So I kind of like where he's at in that starting 38th. You know, I think he's kind of in that 30th range as his floor. I think he's even got top 20 upside, so top 25 upside, sorry. So at his price, he's almost a lock. I would use him in cash games as well. Talked about Darrell Wall starting 26th. Definitely like him. JJ too, yeah. I like all the Hendrick cars. Obviously, Byron's going to be fourth just because of that negative place differential with the engine change. But Jimmy starting fourth. He's going to be GPP only too. It's been a rough season for Jimmy. It's kind of a mystery, wrapped in a riddle. Don't really know what's going on with the 48 car. Kind of weird that he's, I guess, considered by some, not the team, not by Mr. Hendrick for sure, but definitely one of the, you know, bottom drivers on the team right now. But seeing speeds out of him as well. 5th in first practice, 8th in 10-lap averages, got even better in final practice. He was 6th, 2nd in 10-lap averages, starting 4th. So GPP play, I think they're going to work together. So any lineups that I'm going to have Jimmy, I'm probably going to have Bowman or Byron or Elliott. I don't like using all 4 in a lineup and stacking all 4. I do like using 3 of the 4 and then kind of mixing it around and making a core that way. But mostly I'll have 2 of the 4 together in most of my lineups. Most of my lineups that I'm stacking the Hendrick cars is what I kind of mean. I kind of like the Gibbs and Stewart Haas cars as well, and then the Team Penske as well. Team Penske, it's kind of GPP for Keselowski and Blaney for me, and Logano's my core. I talked about that. I think he would be my cash play guys. Bowyer or Bowman, yeah, that's a close one. Their prices are close. Their practices are close. Their track history is close. So we're going to look at, just quickly jump over where it is. There we go. So Bowman. Here's Bowman. So on with this race package, started out slow, 11th and 18th at Vegas and Texas, fired back with a 2nd at Kansas and 7th at Charlotte, which is awesome to see. Bowyer, he's been either really good or, you know, I wouldn't say really bad, but he's 24th at Charlotte, top 5s at Texas and Kansas, 14th at Vegas. Just off of that data, being that they're so close this week in almost every aspect, I'm going to go with Bowman slightly over Bowyer. You also get that little bit of a discount. I do like both. They're both core plays for me, but Bowman over Bowyer. I'm just going to fire through some more questions here. Buescher and Tiff for cash. I like Tiff more for cash, and on FanDuel, it's just those 5 roster spots and a little bit more. I think you can fit Tiff and 4 big-time drivers on there that you can make it. Now, Buescher, I want to touch on him as well. Starting 27th, I like it. He's 26th in first practice, 17th in 10-lap averages. So he's showing that top 20 long run speed, which is good. 15th in final practice and 20th in 10-lap averages. So he definitely looks like he's got a top 20 car. He's rolling really good right now, as you can see. Start looking at the form. 15th in average finish. He is 8th in DraftKings and 8th in FanDuel points per race over the last 6 races. So he's got good form. And he's coming back to a track. I'm going to just show you his track history where he's gotten better every single time he's returned to the track. So 28th in 2016, 27th in 2017, and then 22nd last year. And that was from a 39th starting position. So that was impressive to see his top finish here come from starting from the back. So I'll definitely be looking at him. Both are viable in cash for sure. I just like the lineups you can make. Saving that $3,000, $3,100 on FanDuel allows you to pretty much go up and get Harvick, Logano, Bowman, and then one other driver in there and definitely help you out there. So, but I wouldn't fault you if you went Buescher too in cash games. Definitely both are viable. Paul Menard shows up there as well. He's probably 3rd, probably 4th on my list when it comes to these value guys. Pretty close. Him and Wallace are pretty close there just because of the discount you get with Wallace. But he started 24th. He was 12th in first practice, so good 1-lap speed there. 16th in second practice. The 10-lap averages were down. That's kind of one reason why I'm keeping him as a GPP play. Okay, we'll go through some more questions here. Ricky. Yeah, that's going to be definitely I don't know how much of a GPP pivot it's going to be now that Byron is going to the back. I think Byron is going to be less owned than Stenhouse just because Stenhouse gets that 25th starting position. And we go look at the information here. Stenhouse has been good on these tracks. He's got the 8th best average finish out of all the drivers on the 4 tracks with this package on the 1.5 miles. 6th at Vegas, 16th at Texas, 11th at Kansas, 5th at Charlotte. So I think he's going to be someone I'm going to highlight here. Starting 25th. His 10-lap averages were brutal, but I think they figured it out in the race. And I would say his upside is probably around 15th, and I would like his floor more around like this 20th to 25th, kind of like where he's at, unless something goes wrong. But just the success he's had with this package this year, definitely looking at him. And same story with his teammate Newman, but more GPP for sure. I'm actually going to make him a core play, and I'm going to go Newman as a GPP. Starting 16th. Don't like him starting that close up front. I'd like him outside the top 20, but as you can see, looking at his speeds, he's top 10 in both one lap or both practices, and then 19th and 10-lap averages. So I'm not really liking that long run, so that's why he's a little bit more GPP. Bubba or Tiff for GPP. I'm going to go Tiff just because of the discount. Depends what site you're talking, I guess, Ellis. On DraftKings, it's pretty close. On DraftKings, actually, I go Tiff just because of that extra place differential. On FanDuel, the place differential plus the discount. So Tiff over Wallace for me. Suarez or Bowman for FanDuel cash? Definitely Bowman. Bowman's number 3 in my model. He's the third guy I talked about here. 8,700 and 10.5. Definitely like that. Suarez starting 28th. Don't get me wrong. I do like that. You get a little bit of a discount. I would consider that over on DraftKings, where you get that place differential difference. But I really like Bowman. I think he's going to be a top 5 car this week with chance to win. He's been so close lately. So that, and I like Hendrick in general, the way they've been working together this week and generating speed with those cars. So definitely looking that way. Just going to flip through these questions, make sure I didn't miss anyone. What was Tip's lap averages? Okay, go look at practices. Oh, can't spell. So practice 1, he was 30th. A little bit behind Dylan there. 10-lap averages, he was dead last. So didn't have a good 10-lap average. So practice 1 was kind of a disaster for him. They really picked it up in practice 2, though. He ranked 26th out of the 34 cars, putting pretty good lap times together. Yeah, he was even close to Almirola here, not too far off. So he's kind of got that 26th to 30th feel looking at the 1-lap averages in practice. And then he was 22nd in 10-lap averages in practice 2, which I really like to see because there were 32 drivers. So, you know, he was better than 10 other drivers that ran 10-lap averages. Some of those include Hemrick, who actually qualified right up there. I think he's 3rd. I have to go back and look here real quick. Over here, yeah, 3rd. And then you got Bubba below him, Ty Dillon, Paul Menard even is below him, DeBenedetto, all cars that you would consider better cars, but he had some good averages there. So definitely looking at him. Thoughts on Brad K? Yeah, I just kind of glossed over him a little bit. GPP, he's quietly had 3 wins this season. No one really seems to be talking about him very much. I mean, Kyle Busch does his best work to try and get the attention all over him, just most times in a negative way. But so Logano kind of gets glossed over, and then even Truex with the run that he's been on and the wins lately as well. Keselowski, he was 8th in practice 1. The 10-lap averages was horrible, 21st. And then he was 21st in final practice. 10-lap averages didn't get a whole lot better. None of those practice speeds besides the 1-lap average in the first practice were better than his qualifying. He's always got top 10 upside. I don't care what track it's at. He's one of those drivers that's always got that upside. But this week, just with the practices, you know, if guy didn't have it in first practice, didn't have it in second practice, nothing really pops out, I kind of just leave him as GPP. But I've already got all these guys highlighted. I'm going to have so much exposure of these top guys. I'm probably going to end up fading Keselowski. He's 7th in my model. It just comes down to time for me this week, is I'm only going to be doing 20 lineups on FanDuel and about 3 on DraftKings. So I'm probably not going to get to the point where I'm going to be using Keselowski, because when I build my lineups, I'll get a core of 3 drivers on FanDuel and then switch the other 2 drivers out with that core 5 times, depending on how many drivers I like in the value range or how many fit with the remaining salary. And then I'll go up and switch the core. And Keselowski's not going to get to one of those 3-man cores for me this week, unfortunately. He may come in as a fill-in driver, but that's why he's going to be a fade. No other reason than I'm just not doing 100 lineups, 50 to 100 lineups, or he would end up getting in there. Kyle Larson, I never mentioned as well. He started 14th. He's been tremendous here. We'll go look, I think, over the last 10. Yeah. This is the last 10 races averages. He's only raced here 5 times, but he's top 5 in 3 of them, top 10 in 4 of them, and 18th was his worst finish here in 2016. So he's got that upside. It feels like he's going to win soon. And then we go look at his information here. He's had some real bad luck this year. Not great, 12th, 39th. He had an 8, so he did show some upside, but 33rd at Charlotte. Always seems to be having trouble. He pushes really hard, sometimes gets himself into trouble, blown tire, smacked the wall, hit another car. But I think he figures it out. We've got a ton of speed in that car. Kurt Busch has been an excellent teammate. Larson's more the just go out there and race hard, where Kurt Busch is maybe a little bit more technical on the team, looking at the statistics, looking at lap averages, looking at other drivers' info. I think he's been good for Larson. I think Larson is going – I don't see this continuing for Larson. I think he's a top 5, top 6 car in the series. Going to be there in the playoffs. I don't think he's championship ready yet, but he's getting close. So he'd be GPP for me this week as well. Same with Kurt Busch, their teammates. They're starting 5th. I'm not really liking that. Kurt Busch, he did show top 5 speed and 1 lap and 10 lap averages in the first practice. So definitely use him. I would reserve him for FanDuel only this week. I don't like him starting 5th on DraftKings. Harvick, Bowman, Buescher, Tift, Logano. Rank in order for FanDuel Cash. Will be Harvick, Logano, Bowman, Buescher, and Tift. Or actually Tift over Buescher because of the discount. Reagan, a top 15 card today. Upside. Go down and look at Reagan. No. I don't even think he's got top 20 upside, to be honest with you. He was 24th in the first practice, 31st in the second practice, 26th in 10 lap average. So he hasn't shown anything better than 25th the whole weekend. And just go look at how well he's done in Chicago here. He's raced here 10 times in the last 10 races. Last race is 38th, 29th, 35th. Got a 15th in 2015. Totally different race package. Not really worried there. For that one race that stands out, 31st, 26th, 20. So 1 top 20 in the last 7 races here. I will have 0% of David Reagan this week. Simply because Tift is cheaper. He's starting 38th. Elite place differential upside. I mean, sure, he's going to be 70, 80%, 90%. He should be 90% plus owned in cash. Definitely looking that way. I just don't think you need to go to Reagan. If you want to pivot, I'll go to Darrell Wallace starting 26th. Do you like Hemrick or De Benedetto? Okay, so one thing I haven't discussed yet. We see a lot of these races with the new package. In practice, and even in qualifying, we've seen Austin Dillon and Hemrick work together so well. They get really good speed, so they didn't show the speed in practice at all this week, which they have done in the past. They came out, put a qualifying package together, and they're starting 1st and 3rd. They are not top 5 drivers in the series. I don't think they're going to hang around there. We're going to go look at these other races here. Dillon, 20th, 14th, 17th, 34th of the 4 races. And then we'll go look at his teammate Hemrick. 23rd, 33rd, 18th, 21st. It would be super GPP, very, very contrarian to pair those 2 together or even use one of them, in my opinion. I just didn't see the practice speeds from Dillon that tell me that he's going to hang out there and lead a bunch of laps to start the race, especially when Harvick, who starts right beside him, I'm not sure who's starting inside or outside, but Harvick was fastest in 10 lap averages in final practice, 3rd in 1 lap. So he's got short run speed, he's got long run speed, and he showed the same thing in first practice. I just don't see Dillon leading laps, and I don't see him finishing top 10. So I'll be staying away from those 2 this week. De Benedetto, and definitely not for cash. If you want to use Hemrick or Austin Dillon for GPP and you want to be extra contrarian, sure. Cash games, I think it's crazy to use those 2 in cash games. De Benedetto starting 29th. Definitely would consider. 7,000 is a good price. I think you asked for FanDuel. Yeah, Jeremy, 7,000. He started 29th. He didn't really show much better speed than that. I mean, for cash, I'd rather use Buescher, Menard, Wallace, or Tift that I've got highlighted here. DeBenedetto, sure, I would put him as a GPP play, starting 29th. He's going to be lower owned. Starting 29th, you wouldn't think he'd be low owned, but having Menard, Busher, Wallace, and Tift, especially Bubba and Tift, so much cheaper, and Tift having more place differential upside, Wallace showing more speed in practice, I think DeBenedetto is going to be low owned. He's coming off a career high top 5 finish last week. It was a road course, mind you, but I mean, that momentum carries over mentally for a driver who's been like a 20th to 25th place driver, put together a top 5. Not saying he's going to put another top 5, even a top 10, but if he's in the 20th to 25th range, I think that's a great play. If he's only going to be, 10 to 20% less owned than Tift, Wallace, Menard, or Busher, even just 2 of them to be high owned, I think you're getting away with it. Next question, Suarez or Menard for DraftKings GPP. I like the balanced lineup. I like the way you can build lineups more with Menard. Starting 24th, he looks like he's got about 15th to 20th place speed this week. Suarez looks like he's got top 10 upside, so I definitely would go with Suarez there. It's probably going to be lower owned as well, being that he's more expensive. He's only $100 more on DraftKings, but he is $1,700 more on FanDuel. So on FanDuel, I love Suarez for GPP there. Definitely would be using him. Logano or Brad? You like Brad to win for some reason? Yeah, I'm off Brad like I just mentioned before. I'm not going to get too much into it again. He just hasn't shown me the speed here this week. Starting 12th, he's, like I said, he's got top 10 upside always. These elite drivers at the top, probably I'd say at least these guys, the top 6 drivers on the list here, all got top 10, top 5 upside every single week. But this week, I'm just not feeling Brad. He just hasn't shown me the practice speed and anything. I mean, sure, you could say, well, either has Truex, and I 100% agree with you, but he gives us some more place differential value. And then Kyle Busch, he showed me that 6th top 10 average, 10 lap average in final practice. So that showed me something there as well. Again, with Truex, I don't know what it is. I think he's just going to be a little bit lower owned. He's a little bit more expensive, a little bit more place differential upside. And I just off Brad. I don't fault you at all for using them if you build a little bit different player pool and watch him go out and win the race now. And next week we'll be talking about how I was completely wrong. But it's just a feeling I have this week, so that's just kind of the way I'm going. I like Logano and Elliott, who are above him and below him in price so much more. And like I said, if I was to do 50 lineups, I would definitely have Keselowski in there. I'm doing less this week just because of a time thing this morning. Canada Day long weekend. Happy Canada Day to all you Canadians out there. Also happens to be my birthday on Canada Day. So after this video, I'm probably going to crack a cold one. It's almost noon here in Saskatchewan, so it's about that time. Okay, I'm going to go over a few more questions, and then I do have to get going. Got to build these lineups. I think we've got locked. They moved the race up a little bit, but I think we've got let's just go and I'll just check that. I'll check that after. So just going to answer a few more questions and I'll go on. Oh, on Byron. Yes, on Byron, because it's an engine change, he goes to the back, keeps the same position, keeps the same starting position, the way it worked for him this week. So he's starting 11th, so I think he's going to be very low owned. I like pairing him with like Bowman and Elliott because he's going to be super. I mean, that combination of Bowman and Elliott's probably going to be popular. But you throw in Byron, who now goes to the back and starts with like a negative, I forget what's his new starting position. He won't go right to the back. So like minus 25 starting points. I think a lot of people are going to avoid him, and that's going to give you a unique lineup with your Bowman Elliott stack or Bowman Johnson or whatever way you want to go with the Hendrick cars, 2 or 3 of them. So GPP only for him. And it was an engine change after qualifying, and that's why he keeps his starting time versus Tift, who lost his qualifying time because he failed the first inspection, which removes his qualifying time and puts him back. That's why his fantasy starting is 38th versus Byron's 11th. Any likes for the Hendrick cars? Yeah, I talked about them quite a bit here early in the video. Elliott and Bowman are my number 1. I go Bowman number 1 just because of price, and then Elliott right there as well. Those would be my top 2 to stack out of the Hendrick cars. Add in Jimmy as a GPP only play. I'm going to have less exposure to him just because he hasn't shown us top 5 at all really this whole entire season, but he's shown top 5 speed all weekend along with his teammates who have been fast, and I think they work together. So GPP only. And then, like I said, Byron as an extra contrarian play just because he's going to start with like a -25, -26 place differential. But I think, again, he's got top 10 upside as well. So doesn't matter if you start with a -26 if you still finish top 10. But I think a lot of people will see that and avoid him this week. Just go through here. That looks like I covered all the questions. If maybe I didn't and you're building lineups after this, because it looks like we've got about 2 hours to go, maybe about an hour and a half to build lineups, hit me up in the RotoPros chat room, in the DFSR chat room on Twitter at Jaeger_bombs9, and DFSR as well as RotoPros. We've got some free trials out there right now. So jump over to either site. Jump in there, get that free trial, see what we're all about. Different stuff on both sites. That's why I like working for both. We do different things, so it doesn't really overlap a whole bunch. So definitely go check that out. Let's go build some lineups. Oh, okay, we got one more question. How far you think the 3 would fall back? I honestly see him as like a 15th place car this week. Just go look at his times here once again. 29th in first practice. Top 10 lap average. 23rd, 16th in the final practice. I'd put him at like 12th to 16th. That's kind of where I'm going. Hemrick, I'm thinking more 16th, like to 20th. That's my own personal projection, just off of what I've seen in practice, what I've seen in the past when they've qualified up front as well. So that's kind of what I'm basing that off of. I'm not just picking a number out of the air. That's just kind of what I'm looking at there for him. Okay, one more thing here. DK 15 lineup. Should I make like 3 cores and rotate? So what I would do with 15 lineups is I would probably go, I would take your 3 or 4, you got that extra driver, so you got 6 in the lineup. Yeah, I do like going 3, picking 3 guys and then swapping in the other 3 guys. I'd probably do that at least 5 times. So you could build 3. Now with your second core, I would, because you're doing 15 lineups, I would keep it close to your first core. So keep 1 driver the same, or even 2 drivers the same, and swap out that 3rd driver in your core. And then your 3rd core, just go not completely contrarian, but change up those 3 drivers to 3 that you maybe didn't use in those first 2 cores, and maybe that you don't have any exposure to in those first 10 lineups. So that's how I would go about doing those 15 lineups. Chase or Hamlin. Chase over Hamlin. I do like Hamlin for GPP. I don't think Chase is going to be low owned. He's been trending. He's a little bit cheaper. He's under 10K on DraftKings. He's got some place differential. Showed top 5 speed and 10 lap hours. I think he's top 5 highest owned. Right there. Awesome. That's just kind of how I feel with Dylan and Hemrick. You know, seeing them start up front and knowing that they're like 15th to 20th place cars. Dylan's shown top 10 upside this year, but they're 15th to 20th place cars. I'm not willing to take that risk with them this week, liking so many other drivers better. And like I said, Harvick starting right beside Dylan on the front row, showing top 3 speed all weekend, while Dylan showed top 10 speed just once in 10 lap averages in practice 1. I think Harvick gets out front and leads right away. It's completely wrong on this last week with my Dominator early, but this week I'm going with Harvick. Harvick also happens to be my youngest daughter and my wife's favorite driver, so I really had to bite the bullet when I said I was picking Harvick as my top driver this week. As you can see, Kyle Busch is my favorite driver, so we have a battle in the household that will be going on today as well. My oldest daughter is also a Kyle Busch fan, so it's kind of 2 versus 2. All right, enough about me. Let's go build some lineups, get some green screens this week, and once again, awesome turnout. Thanks for showing up and watching the video. Like I said, ask questions, reach out to me anytime. I'm available almost all the time. Thanks for watching. I'll be back next week to do the same thing. Let's go get some green screens. Thanks, everyone.